Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, alright. I have the most fantastic news ever. I know I've been ranting and raving for months and months about reprints coming back to the game of Magic the Gathering, and frankly, I was really happy with the results of the latest Modern Masters expansion that came out last month. But oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I cannot believe it. I am so thrilled because one card that I missed in the original Modern Masters expansions, or one card that was not reprinted in any of those expansions for that matter, was Ancestral Visions. But I have such great news. Finally, after months of waiting, I can finally get a copy of Ancestral Visions. In this. Oh my god. I am so happy. I mean, think about it, just the return of Johora and Suspend. I mean, obviously, you gotta have to admit there's gonna be a copy of Ancestral Visions in this wonderful duel deck. Oh my god, it's so refreshing, and it's what? You mean there isn't a copy of Ancestral Visions in the duel deck? What the hell? Oh my god, you... Why? Why? God! Sometime later. Okay. Now that I have gathered my composure, I can safely say that there is no copy of Ancestral Vision in the latest duel deck, Mind versus Might. But since I have this thing, I might as well give you a review and see what other cards are inside this deck that has completely destroyed a good portion of my expectations. Alright, so with me today I have the newest duel deck, Mind vs. Might. As stated before, it features no copies of Ancestral Vision, but does feature two very popular legendary creatures that are actually quite, I guess you could say, playable, or quite popular in casual formats. Personally, I'm not super huge of a fan of duel decks that have featured no planeswalkers. I feel like planeswalkers are very iconic, very flavorful, and a lot of planeswalkers have huge rivalries between each other, which is why duel decks really work out in a big flavor success. But honestly, I don't think these two legendary creatures really were enemies at any point in time, so I don't really see the flavor behind this duel deck. But anyway, let's open this up and see what's inside. I'm already steamed about there not being Ancestral Vision because of the return of the Suspend mechanic. I think a lot of these cards in this deck will have Suspend, given Johora is in the deck. See, this looks pretty standard. Should come with some dice and boxes. Oh no, it comes with this manual. I'm sure this will tell you the attempted flavor behind this duel deck, but it doesn't really exist. Again, boxes that I don't think will fit, or actually it's a little different. Is this for both of them, or I don't know, this looks like it's like a pouch of some sort. It's not really a box, but it may hold some cards. It doesn't look like it's large enough to fit sleeve cards, so I have no use for it. But yeah, like stated before, this looks just like your standard duel deck opening. It's got the two dice, which are nice collectibles. I know a lot of people love to have their D20s handy. And as I recall, let me guess, the foil premium legend is on the outside of the box. Yes, it is. I'm not super huge fan of it because, I mean, the foil is the card that bends the easiest. But let's go into each of the decks and see what Wizards has surprised us with in these installation of this product. Since the name of the deck is Mind vs. Might, I think I'll start with the Mind side of things, starting out with the poster child of the Mind side, Johora of the Githyu, which is very good at suspending your spells. For 2 generic mana, you can exile a spell, put some time counters equal to its CMC, and then give it Suspend, and every upkeep you'll remove a Suspend counter, and eventually you'll be able to cast your spell once it loses all of its time counters, so to speak. Going with Jori-En, this is a recent legend in recent memory. I'm not a big fan of Jori-En. I feel like it requires you to just cast a lot of spells, but I guess if you have that requirement, Jori-En may make a nice addition for a card advantage battery. Tolerant, the Sky Summoner, since this is the Mind side, I think the Mind side is big on casting spells, and Tolerant's actually a lot of fun to play with if you know you can chain a lot of spells together. It definitely gives you a lot of, I guess you could say, drakes if you know that you can get a lot of spells within a span of a turn. This is kind of a dull card. I've never really played with this too much. I feel like this was just more some draft chaff. Next we have the Unspeakable. I don't know if people watching this video remember this creature. This creature was from the Champions of Kamigawa set, and I believe you had a way to cheat into play if you had 3 other spells that were able to, well, cheat into play, and if you cast those 3 spells, you'd be able to get it for free. Frankly, I feel like the Unspeakable, even though you can get into play for free if you cast those 3 cards, it has a kind of underwhelming ability for all the stuff you do to get into play for free, and even so, at 9 mana, I just kind of feel like it could have been a lot better. Well, hello there, Mind's Desire. How are you today? I don't really understand why Wizards is reprinting a bunch of cards that are banned in most formats. I know you can play Mind's Desire in EDH, but frankly, I've actually tried playing Mind's Desire in EDH, and to put it lightly, you're going to make a lot of enemies really quickly. I just don't understand why on earth you would reprint a card that was pretty much banned before it was even released to the public. I'm actually a big fan of Volcanic Vision for EDH. I feel like this is just nice because I love to recycle my instants and sorceries, and getting a board wipe in addition to that is really, really good. And frankly, I think that originally the exile clause on this card was kind of weird, but I think it kind of makes sense once you play with it enough. It's just such a powerful card. Farmind's Insight is a giant 7-mana tutor, which does give you a lot of stuff. I do think it is a good card, but I feel like I say, it's mainly a casual staple. It is good for what it does, though. Knowing me, I love Time Warps, and Beacon of Tomorrows is probably my favorite card in this, I guess you would say, dual deck at the moment. Just an extra turn, and it can easily be recycled. Hey, it's Young Pyromancer. This card actually does see some legacy play, or has in the past. I don't know how popular it is. But it's not a bad card, and if you know you can chain a lot of instants and sorceries, get some Phyrexian mana going, you can really abuse this thing to heck and back. Goblin Electromancer, a very nice card for the Storm decks. Nucleavy is a lot of fun, gets you a lot of value for what you pay for it. You just have to be sure you play the right colors of instants and sorceries. Up next, we have Reach Through Mists, Peer Through Depths, and Sift Through Sands. This is what I was saying earlier. These are the 3 spells needed to cast the Unspeakable. If you cast these 3 spells, ending with a Sift Through Sands as your last spell, you will get a free Unspeakable. Snap is the classic card from Urza's Legacy that will get you some free stuff if you use it correctly. It doesn't tap 2 lands upon casting, allowing you to cast some more stuff. And you can bounce a permanent, so it's a pretty sweet card. Speaking of Storm, or going back to the theme of Storm, we have a copy of Desperate Ritual, which will get you more mana for spells. Grape Shot, which is your Ender. Very powerful card in that archetype. Empty the Warrens, which will get you a horde of goblins if you cast enough spells to really take effect of that Storm. Temporal Fissure, a Storm card that never truly caught on. I never have seen this played in Legacy, or in fact any format. And Rift Bolt, which, believe it or not, was actually played in some Storm decks back when it wasn't standard, if you can believe that or not. But this is actually kind of exciting. This actually is 3 copies of Rift Bolt, so if you want to play Burn, hey, you get some nice key pieces of your Burn puzzle. And now on to the Might side of things. The poster child of this side of the dual deck is Lavisa Cold Eyes, which is honestly kind of an odd legendary creature, which gives all Barbarian, Warrior, and Berserkers 2/2 and haste. The odd thing is Lavisa herself is neither one of these creature types. She's just a human. First up, we have Talara's Battalion. Honestly, I think this card was played a little bit in Standard, but I think since Tormagorf is the big Mac Daddy of the Legacy format in terms of green 2-drops, I don't think you're going to be playing with this too often unless you're playing like Tribal Elf casually. Rada Heretic Held is actually a pretty popular card. I knew a lot of people who really loved this card back when it first came out. And it's actually neat because it does provide you some ramp, but the catch is you can only use it during your combat phase for the most of the time. It does provide a green mana, but that red mana is just kind of weird, but I've known some ways you can use it. Next is Zozu the Punisher, and frankly I think Zozu is probably one of the more popular red generals I've seen in the EDH over the years. Like his name says, he's a very punishing card, punishes anybody for playing lands. Rubberbur Raiders. Yeah, no. Next is Kamal Pit Fighter. Kamal Pit Fighter is actually pretty cool. I'm actually a big fan of Kamal Pit Fighter. Since I originally started on Odyssey, Kamal's always kind of been close to my heart. I don't think he's an amazing card, but I think he's a good general for EDH that a lot of people kind of overlook. Here we have 2 copies of Call of the Herd. This card used to be a big deal back in the day, but I think since the power level of things have, I guess, increased over the years, it's not as spicy. Here's Increasing Savagery. I actually am a fan of this card. I do realize that it gets really powerful when you flash it back. My goodness, if you can like drop that on a hexproof creature, that just gets out of hand really quickly. Speaking of cards that I know used to be expensive, we have this coat of arms here. This is actually wonderful for tribal decks. It's just gets you so much power for the mana you put in it, and I know a lot of people who have wanted some of these over the years. But yeah, I think it's a solid card, and I'm actually glad it's kind of here, because it's actually a pretty hard card to find. Another card I'm a big fan of is actually Beacon of Destruction. This is actually a reusable, I guess you could say, it's not a Goblin Grenade, but it does 5 damage to a creature or player, and you get to reuse it over and over again. I guess this is kind of nice, because you get the Beacon of Tomorrow's for the Mind deck, and you get this one for the Might deck, and it's actually pretty nice, because just keep in mind, it is an instant. You can do 5 damage to a creature or player, and you get to shovel it back in, so that's actually really nice. If you have something to keep tutoring this up, just like the other Beacon. I want to say this guy was played back in Standard, but I don't think he's that great nowadays. Burning Tree Emissary, on the other hand, is actually pretty sweet. Being able to chain into another spell or another creature is quite devastating, and it's honestly an ability that I think a lot of people really overlook. I know a lot of people have actually compared this guy to something like a Bloodbraid Elf, but honestly, you have to really have a good hand in order for it to work to its best ability. This thing is basically a Foundry Steep Denizen that works for any creature. It also has Trample, but sadly it never caught on in competitive play. You're not that reckless, trust me. You've never met the Bushwhacker. Here's a funny one, the Boldweir Intimidator. This is actually kind of neat because it actually introduces the creature type of Coward. I think I liked Firebolt back in the day when I was a kid, but sadly I don't think it ever caught on because it's a sorcery, not an instant. Next up is this cool version of Guttural Response, which has a really angry gorilla holding a sword. Personally, I'm a fan of this art, and personally, I'm a fan of this card. I think this is a very underrated counterspell. Next up is a classic Rampant Growth. I'm a big fan of Rampant Growth, but frankly, I don't know why Wizards never wants to reprint it for Standard! Next up is Harmonize. I'm a big fan of Harmonize. I like Harmonize. It's great for EDH. It actually does see some play in Modern, in mono green, like Control and Ramp decks, as a nice way for getting some card advantage. And yeah, it's overall a pretty solid card, even though it's a clone of the classic card, Concentrate. And rounding out the Might deck, we have the classic flashback spells from the Odyssey block, Sylvan Might, Beast Attack, and Roar of the Worm. I guess if you're in the mood for some flashback spells, these are all pretty solid, but frankly, I don't know how well they're going to venture in the competitive scene. So that's what's inside Duel Decks Mind vs. Might, and frankly, even though it's a little disappointing not to see any Planeswalkers, this Duel Deck's actually not the worst. I've seen far worse Duel Decks before, but frankly, I think this has a lot of pretty good stuff. Although I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who's super competitive, I think if you are a new player and you're looking for some fairly powerful cards for playing casual or even some competitive decks in that matter, then this might be a good gift. I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to build a deck, though, of course. You're better off just buying your individual cards that you need for the deck that you want. But honestly, this isn't terrible. There's a lot of really powerful stuff, and heck, if you're a casual player who wants to be a total jerk, go ahead and play that Mind's Desire. It's pretty fun if you like being a troll. Like I said before, with the suspending mechanic returning in this deck, I was really surprised that Ancestral Visions was not to be seen anywhere. I don't understand that. That's a perfect opportunity to reprint something like that. But honestly, this deck's, aside from having these powerful cards for a new player, it's just kind of completely average, just like most Duel Decks have been in the last year or so. Frankly, I think Duel Decks need to be a little bit more spicy, and I feel like, if anything, this one was just a tad bit more than usual. I feel like it had a little more rares, but sadly, not the rares that Magic players had been really asking for. Overall, I think I'm going to give this Duel Deck a 2.7 out of 5. It's a little bit worse than the last, but it's not bad. Like I say, if you're new and you know a player that's new, or know any players that new who want to play casually or have some big powerful spells that could potentially be used competitively or casually, then this is not a bad gift. But frankly, I feel like anyone else who has been playing the game a while or has no need for these cards whatsoever, well, it's just kind of worthless. Tell me what you think about Duel Decks Mind vs. Mind in the comments section below, and what your thoughts are about the current situation of Duel Decks. Until next time, my name is Ryu. Happy gaming, and I'll see you all next time.